A lot happened in 2022, and I think that there were some news stories that got missed due to some very big things going on, which definitely needed the airtime. For example, Russia invading Ukraine and declaring war on their sovereign territory, inflation, lots of technological advancements, Twitter being bought. So here's 5 categories where I feel like we missed an important news story. I've got housing, investing, crypto, tech, and personal finance. So let's jump right into it. Go ahead and like the video if you like a little recap for the news for the year. So starting with housing, and this is from CBC News on August 3rd, 2022. RE/MAX president says that big investors are eyeing Canadian housing market just like they are in the United States. And 20% of homes that sold in Q1 2022 in the United States were sold to institutional investors like companies such as BlackRock, Vanguard, pension funds, etc. Regular people are being priced out of the housing market right now due to increasing mortgage rates, inflation, foreign buying in certain markets, and big investment firms that are able to make offers without having to worry about big stipulations or they can pay with cash have a much better chance in the buying market right now than traditional buyers do. This trend could continue to price out people out of the housing markets in North America. Stats Canada does not keep statistics regarding institutional investors owning residential properties as rentals, and obviously large companies were slow to make comment or did not want to respond to this news story. See, the problem with institutional investors buying homes is it could continue to price regular Canadians out of the housing market. To continue with this, BlackRock opened up Canadian offices here last year. They're hoping to expand the $14 billion in real estate that they currently own in Canada. So to mitigate some of the risk of having institutional investments and foreign buyers, we have had a restriction for 2 years come into play here starting in 2023 from the federal government that restricts foreign home ownership here in Canada. So really all that we can do is wait and see if the housing market cools down from these actions. The next category I want to talk about was tech, and I specifically wanted to highlight tech layoffs because there was some talk about it in August and I made a TikTok about it, but the actual depth of the tech layoffs was a lot more than I had actually expected. So this information comes from Computer World and from True Up Tech with no date. 2022 saw the end of the massive tech hiring expansion, and the focus was cutting fat last year. So tech has basically hired anyone who is qualified and everyone due to the ease of access to capital and rapid expansion. They basically could just ask for money and get it if they needed it from investors or other people. But this year was the change on that. So in 2022, there was 237,000 US tech workers laid off in 1,517 rounds of layoffs. So the biggest mass layoffs came in November of 2022 with over 60,000 tech workers losing their jobs. Meta and Amazon topped this list with 11,000 and 10,000 people being laid off respectively during November. But what really surprised me when I took a look at the data, so through Q2 to the end of Q4 2022, every month averaged more than 10,000 layoffs, and most monthly averages came far closer to 25,000 being let go each month. And when we take a look at Meta and Amazon, we can see why the layoffs were necessary. Meta has seen significant year-over-year changes in revenue and expenses, and every high-level financial metric is looking worse than 2021's. And we also saw continued investment in their metaverse program, which has yet to pay off. I believe they're up to over $10 billion now on that. If we take a look at Amazon's statement of operations, we can see again, despite growth in revenue, their cost controls were not there, and they posted an after-tax loss through the first 9 months of 2022. So we'll have to wait and continue to see if tech sheds employees or if hiring starts again with some economic stability potentially on the horizon. I did recently just see a story that it may be looking like Facebook is going to be starting another hiring campaign here in the spring, so we'll have to see the outcome of that. On the investment front, and I had made a TikTok about this just last week, I wanted to talk about the ARK Innovation ETF. So this is not really a news story, but it's still something worth discussing. ARK Investments had a real fall from grace in 2022. The ARK Innovation ETF is an investment fund that focuses primarily on disruptive technology, things like crypto, tech, new firms, those kind of things. Very kind of early growth stage fund. Cathie Wood, who is a famed investor for our all-in on growth ETFs through ARK, faced heavy criticism in 2022 for the losses that the innovation fund posted. After an unbelievable 2020, where ARK posted 153% growth, 2021 and 2022 were the years that Cathie faced the reality that a lot of us face. We can all make good decisions in a bull market. The problem is that we don't lose excess amounts of other people's money when our investments go bad. It's just ours. So ARK has now returned to its pre-March 2020 pricing, with investors actually losing money after you account for inflation through this 2-year period if you were to have bought then and then held until now. So as the end of 2022, ARK is trading at just $35 net asset value compared to a 2022 high of 86 and a 2020 high of 155 net asset value. This is probably worth making a full video about, but it really highlights that everyone is a good investor in a bull market and that going up is not an excuse to ignore proper risk management protocol, and especially when you're dealing with other people's money. Now, we can take a look at personal finance for another news story here as well. I got both of these stories from CBC News and NBC News on December 6th and November 15th, 2022, respectively. And this is about growing debt load, non-mortgage debt in Canada and the United States. So consumer debt in North America is growing at concerning rates, especially non-mortgage debt. In Canada, the average non-mortgage debt is now $21,183. And the total debt has grown to just under $600 billion, which is about 5.3% higher than it was last year. Credit card spending continues to grow, up about 17.3% year over year compared to 2021. And all consumer segments, including subprime, are seeing a growth in both credit card spending and new card issues. Non-mortgage debt in Canada has seen an increase in delinquencies as well, with 0.93% of debt being over 90 days due now. This compares to 0.87 in the same period of 2021, though insolvencies still are far below pre-pandemic levels, which is a good thing. In the US, things are not looking much better than they are in Canada. The collective credit card balance has almost reached $1 trillion in the United States, which is insane. I mean, they have a lot more people, but that's a lot of money. And it's up 15% from the same period in 2021. Student loan balances have decreased due to the Biden administration's forgiveness efforts, but auto loans have gotten higher. The pace is what's concerning experts. A new 15-year high has been set. Unfortunately, this is one of those things that we just need time to solve. People will slowly make more money as inflation cools, and hopefully we will see debt levels become more realistic. But this is again one of those stories that only time can tell how it's going to play out. And last but certainly not least, I wanted to touch on cryptocurrency, specifically Ethereum in November of 2022. There's a lot of things that I could say about crypto. Probably most of it would be negative, but really I wanted to just pick a story that I thought kind of helped validate the technology and see that we are moving forward in this industry. The big news this year in crypto was sustainability, and this might be one that you've seen. In 2022, Ether finally started using proof of stake instead of proof of work for their blockchain. So crypto is kind of complicated when you want to jump into the details exactly of how it works, but I'll just keep it light. The details aren't super important to what the change was. So proof of stake is a newer and more efficient way to prove work on a blockchain. Cryptocurrencies use their blockchain to record transactions, and the decentralized part comes because anyone with sufficient computing power can prove these transactions as valid, and they get paid a small sum for doing that math. So the problem was that this process is incredibly energy intensive and had high barriers to entry if you wanted to mine Ether. This is part of the reason why the computer graphics card markets was out of stock for months and prices were going crazy, is because these are some of the best non-specific computing systems per dollar that you could buy to mine cryptocurrency. So essentially this new method allows for more security, better market participation, and more decentralization. So I want to touch a little bit further on the decentralization part because it's a fundamental issue with crypto mining. Economies of scale are incredibly important when you are looking at proof of work, and this is doubly true if you live in a market where energy is quite expensive because you're basically just turning energy into money using computers. As time goes on, there's less coins to mine, which means that it takes more effort, and the cost per coin and your profitability continues to drop as time goes on. So if you could set up a massive warehouse full of mining machines, you could still make quite a bit of money, but this is not very decentralized since a large number of transactions are approved by a small handful of parties with enough money and computing power to prove them. So theoretically, this further decentralization will help Ether continue to be one of the benchmark cryptocurrencies on the market right now. So as I stated, 2022 was a crazy year. A ton of things happened, really good, really bad, but I hope you enjoyed hearing about 5 lesser known stories that maybe didn't make it to the front page of the news. Thanks for watching.